Hey guys, welcome to the Fit Soul podcast. This is part one of a two-part interview that I did with Miss Leah Jolly, who is our Miss Mississippi. And she is her story. We talked about it a lot. We unpacked it today. Her testimony is powerful and how God's using her voice when she was an orphan at the age of 11 and didn't know any English when she moved to the United States of America and started things later in life and has had massive success. And it is just really empowering. She has a story of resilience, of strength, of grace, clearly beauty. She's an entrepreneur. She is as smart as a whip. She's an artist. She is a professional dancer. She owns her own dance studio, and she's got a heart and mission that is powerful. You're going to be blown away by this episode, and you'll definitely want to catch the part two. And I'm calling this Chosen, Crowned, and Changing the World. So enjoy this podcast, my friend. Hello and welcome back to the Fit Soul podcast. Super excited today. I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Leah Jolly, and she is our current Miss Mississippi. Hello, Leah. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always a good day with you, Amy.
It is so exciting to have you here back in Mississippi after just what has it even been 2 weeks since the Miss
Yeah,
America
and I
pageant?
think almost exactly. I think it's like 2 weeks and a half, maybe, because today's Thursday. Yeah.
We got you back. We're so proud. All of the state was cheering this girl on. And it's not because she's beautiful, because she is stunning, obviously. But Analia, I'm so excited to have you here on this podcast and share with my listeners your story, because your story has so much hope, so much inspiration, so much resilience, so much strength, so much grace, so much poise, so much overcoming. And you're so young that God's got so much for you, young lady. I sound like an old lady saying young lady, but you're just so young, and it's just so exciting to see the like what the possibilities for you. It's limitless.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So before we get started, let me read over your bio and give you a formal introduction. She is Miss Mississippi 2025, and she is a dancer and owner of a studio, and we'll tell about our little Starbucks story here in a second. She's pursuing dual bachelor's degree in business and fine arts at Belhaven University. Some of her accomplishments include the Woman's Entrepreneur Scholarship. She is a two-time published author featured on Barnes& and Noble with The Limitless Ballerina and Theodore the Little Bear with Big Feelings. And she's a CASA state ambassador. And part of her story, and you're going to share this, of course, Annalie, is that you were adopted from Ukraine at 11 years old and learned the English language in 1 year. You came to the United States and you were adopted alongside 14 other kids to different families, not to the same family. And today, you are the only one who still has a positive relationship with your adopted family. And I love your heart to champion foster care and adoption across Mississippi, I would say across the US, if not the world, and help close the gap between the number of children adopted and the number of children in successful and secure attachments. So beautiful. Her platform is called Limitless, and it teaches children emotional intelligence and how to effectively communicate their feelings, which you believe is crucial for children in foster care and adoption to aid them to forming an attachment with families placed in that they're placed into. So super excited, so glad that you are here. And not only that, you are a top 10 finalist in the Miss America pageant. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, wow. It's interesting hearing you read all that because when you put it in perspective, sometimes I feel like unaccomplished. I know that sounds weird, but at my age, I feel like everyone's always asking me like, "What's next? What's next?" And it's just like, "Oh, I don't know." And I mean, I do, but it's just kind of always just kind of going with the flow. So to see it all like tied together in the bow is interesting. Just for me to see that perspective of it.
I love that. Isn't that fun? Sometimes that when we are high capacity, high performing, high achieving women, that we can have a propensity to go, 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 go. What's next? What's next? Okay, yeah, that was great. That's great. Okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And there's something that's really beautiful about slowing down, acknowledging, wow, that was done. That was really a hard process, a hard accomplishment, and I'm on the right track. Okay, pat yourself on the back a little bit and keep going. Yeah. um, okay, so we have so much to unpack. I love that a couple of weeks, like the day before I saw you speak at an engagement, you stop. I was on a coaching call actually with a client of mine, sitting at Starbucks, and I go to that Starbucks every single day. I know every employee there. You too.
I'm pretty sure I'm keeping them in business. Like I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I'm keeping them
Okay.
afloat.
Okay, then we both are. So I'm there all the time, and this beautiful young lady comes walking by, and she says, "You look familiar," and I'm thinking, "You look familiar." Now that makes sense. We're both in Starbucks all the time. But you just struck up a conversation. It was so interesting how confident you were. That's what struck me. And my friend, Susie Foote, a little shout out to Susie Foote, was like, "Hey, wait a minute. You're Miss Mississippi." She knew who you were. And you were like, "Yeah," you were kind of humble about it, but you were off to teach a dance class. But you have so much confidence for your age. It's really, really impressive.
Thank you. Yes, I've actually, okay, so I'm awful with names, but really good with faces. It's like, I don't know, I guess I almost have photographic memory, so I can really remember someone's what they look like. And I think I've seen you in church like once or twice. It's a
Oh,
really with Pine Lake. And Pine Lake is a giant church, so I've literally only seen him maybe twice.
yeah.
And uh, I don't know. I think I remember it was after a Wednesday night. It was a service night. They have it only like once a month. Um, and I remember just like going, I was sitting on like one of the front rows, and I think you were there as well. And I just remember seeing you like, once, and then afterwards you were talking to someone and you were just like encouraging them. And I'm like, oh, that's such a sweet lady. And then I kept seeing you at Starbucks for years. This was like years ago. This was like maybe I want to say it was like 3 years ago.
Oh my, yeah.
And I keep like seeing you every time, and I'm like, where have I seen her? Like, I know her. And then I see you at church again. I was like, oh yeah, she goes to Pine Lake. And then like I haven't seen you in a while. Like, I don't know, maybe like our times haven't crossed or whatever. But I realized it's because I haven't taught in a while because I've been preparing for the pageant. And then once I won Miss Mississippi, I had, someone hired. So I haven't been teaching too much. And but every time I teach, I always like stop at Starbucks and go because I usually am there for 4 or 5 hours. And I remember like seeing you again. And I'm like, I'll probably never see her again because it's been a very long time. And I was like, I might as well just say hi. So I saw you sitting there and I was like, I think you go to Pine Lake. And I think I go to Pine Lake. So like we
Crazy.
know
Okay,
each other.
I didn't know it went back like to all that. That is so awesome. I just thought, wow, she just came right, which is awesome. So anyway, that's so fun. And now we'll know at Starbucks we can
I was thinking
connect.
she's gonna think I'm crazy. I'm just coming up to her
Oh, so
randomly,
you
but I
don't
just
normally do that then?
no.
Oh,
No. But
and
I'm not shocked. But
no.
I'm still like, I mean, I'm not gonna just like come and I saw that you were with someone and I was like, oh, she's gonna think I'm crazy, but I might as well just say hi.
It was a God moment. It was a God moment. And what was really awesome is you spoke at an event. I think it was the next day or 2 days later. And so we
Yeah,
had
I
that
think
little moment together. hmm
uh-huh. I think
And
we saw each other on Monday and it was Wednesday when I spoke. Yeah, it was
okay,
very
yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Very
yeah, yeah. So it was just like meant to be. It was totally meant to be. And we exchanged phone numbers. I was praying for you the whole route. And, it's just, God just gave me that Matthew 5 scripture over you that you are a light. You are not meant to be hidden, that you're meant to shine. And look at you wearing yellow today. I mean, just that bright light. I just love it.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
that's funny.
and one thing that struck me so much, now I didn't know your story, just being very transparent, I had no idea of your story. And you got up to speak And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. And it was a large room with over 100 women. And what you said stuck with me. You said, I usually share my story, but today I'm going to share my testimony. I was like, you go, girl, come on now. And you just came at it. And so, you know what? With that same spirit and with that same fervor, I want you to share your testimony. As we're sharing this, you share Jesus in this, and you just share what God has done, because that's different than your story. I believe it's different than your story. And I do believe that your story has so much light and impact to to all of us, for strength and resilience and what God can do and what He's doing through you. So, with that being said, would you share your testimony with us? And what was life like when you moved to the US, 12 years not knowing any English? Just take us back.
Yeah. So I want to share, I feel like kind of led to share this backstory of why I said that, because I'm hoping that that'll encourage someone else to view life like that as well. So when I was competing, so last year was my first year competing for Miss Mississippi. I was Miss Rankin County, and I feel like, well, and I got top five. And someone encouraged me to like come back. And I just remember, well, actually a few people encouraged me, but I was kind of like teeter tottering of like not really wanting to do it again. Just because I do own a dance studio, and I was also just like, it was just a lot to balance, because I was also in school and then had another job on top of that. And it was just a lot. And I don't think there wasn't a moment in my life that I haven't been busy. So I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this one more time, because this is a lot of preparation and work. And I've always thought that I did pretty good in interview until I watched my interview. And like, granted, the one like good thing is I can connect with a person, but I'm not gonna sound like a reporter or like this professional spoken person, and or at least not yet. And I just remember having a really hard once I did decide to do the pageant, having a really hard time in my mock interviews. Just it was just not going well. Like I don't know why, but my either the questions I was being asked I wasn't prepared for, or I just was just like rambling a lot, and just it just didn't go well. And I got recommended to speak to Connie Brand. Connie Brand, she's a mom of a girl that Holly Brand, she used to be Miss Mississippi, and I think she was 2021. I don't really remember. But I know she was Miss Mississippi pretty recently. And I don't know, she's done a lot of good mock interviews with other people before. She's a pageant coach, and I just kind of, or specifically an interview coach. And I don't know, I just kind of got introduced to her, and the first thing she's asked me was, tell me your story. Like she was like, talk me like back from, when you were born to right now. And I was like, well, I've never had anyone ask that. And because usually pageant coaches are just kind of like, what's your goals? What are you doing? Give me top ten things you would want to talk about in an interview, or top five things or whatever. And she was just so different. And she was like, hey, I want to just tell me everything. And I was like, okay. So we sat for 2 hours, and I just shared my story of just being an orphan, being literally dropped off on the gates of a Ukrainian orphanage, and just how like my life, it was kind of weird because at in the orphanage, or at that point in my life, you can actually pick up your kid again, and like you still have parental rights until they're taken away, and then you're like permanently an orphan. And it's a little bit different. It's almost like a foster care system, like we have here, but it's in like one place, one facility. And it's very giant, very large. And I remember at 5 years old, I didn't understand like what the heck was happening. And I remember her take like my mom, my biological mom, like taking me back and forth between like her and then dropping me back off. And that happened until I was about 10. And it was just happening a lot. And became very, very physically abusive, to where I remember ending up in the hospital multiple times, and it was awful. And I just remember like there was so many times that I could have died, and I didn't know that as a child, but like looking back, I'm like, oh, like I was literally past that. Like that could have happened. And I just, once I got to America and found Jesus, and I can share about that a little bit later. I was just like looking back over my whole life of like, wow, I'm not supposed to be here technically, like statistically, and yet I am, and like, and then yet I do know Jesus, and He's given me specific, like a specific story to share that I didn't think like anyone would be able to relate to. But it's not about relatability; it's the fact that like wow, it's a story within itself of not only like resilience, but like God's grace and like God's mercy, and not just taking me out of that situation, but like taking me out of that and putting me with a whole different family on the other side of the earth in the greatest nation in the world, and giving me a voice and now like this title to share my story. And I just remember like telling her all of this, and well, of course this is right before I won Miss Mississippi, and I was just telling her my whole story, and she said at the end of it, she was like, Emily, you have such a testimony, and there should be no reason why you shouldn't win Miss Mississippi if you go from it from that perspective of like, don't focus on knowing everything politically and being like politically correct and all these things. Like, go into it with, you're on the mission to share your story and share God's testimony in your life. And I think that was a difference because, my community service initiative is called Limitless. And for a while, I was kind of, I didn't know what I was doing in the first year. And I just remember thinking, like, oh, I'm just going to share my story and just maybe encourage people that no matter where they start in life, they can be limitless and they can be successful. Because, like, I started in an orphanage, and yet 12 years later, like my parents right now are not even close to being rich or anything like that, but like they gave me the love that I needed to move on, and also the opportunities and like dance, and things like that to really grow myself. And of course, like they really installed like the scripture in my heart, and just making sure that they raised me in the right way. But I gotta say, like, the rest was still up to me. Like, I could have totally had that orphan mentality in my head, and I could have stayed in that, my whole life, and I could have stayed a victim. But and I'm not saying like, oh, don't stay a victim, because I know like people will get mad, but it truly
No,
is.
staying a victim just keeps you stuck. You cannot move forward in life if you have that. Listen, no, girl, you keep sharing just like you're sharing, because I've been a victim of circumstances too. And I stayed in that mentality for a long time, and it kept me stuck. So God does
Yeah.
not, we are overcomers. And so, yeah, you stand in that strength, sister.
When that's actually the biggest, I would say the biggest stepping point, like the biggest like moment in my life that I think everything changed was, yes, I became a believer, but you can be a Christian and still be stuck. And
Yes.
I just remember having like nightmares of everything that happened in Ukraine, and like all the like basically my second life. Like, I felt like I was living a double life of like I had all these memories, and I was still thinking in Russian and like speaking in Russian, and then like still trying to learn English. And I felt so out of place, and like also trying my best to like fit into a family that, technically is a natural to a 12 years old now be with this whole brand new family and speaking a whole different language, going to a different school, and like all these things. When you talk about moving, I mean, this is no joke. This is truly transforming your life. And I just remember having those dreams when I would wake up of like my past, and I just remember this thought that came into my head that I know was Jesus, but at the time, like, I didn't know him like that, so I didn't know it was him. But I remember thinking like a thought that wasn't my own, of like that I wouldn't from my heart think. But it was in my head of like, if you want to be normal, which is all I wanted out of life, because I just, I've been through so much at that point. I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a normal child and not have this like, not having this like not only orphan mentality, but also this survival skills like constantly popping into my head, and counting the exits and like all the things that trauma. And I just remember him saying like, if you want to be normal, then you have to forgive your past, and like you have to move on. And I just remember like that was a light bulb moment for me as a 12-year-old. I'm like, wow, like even though my biological mom like did me wrong, me me thinking about that, and me like thinking about my past life is not about to help me in this life. And I truly was giving a brand new life. Like um my walk with the Lord is something that I've never had before. I had a different family, different language. My parents, from the moment they met me to the moment they adopted me, it was 9 months. So it was like having a baby, and they've never had a kid before. And like, so it truly was a brand new life. So if I have this brand new life, then why would I be focused in the past? And that was just something as like that's why I know, like at a 12-year-old, I know I wouldn't have been able to think that on my own. So that's how I know it was God. And I just remember like sharing all this with her, and Connie was like, Analia, you need to go into Miss Mississippi with that. Like you need to start sharing your testimony, not just your story. And at the time, when I was competing the second year, which was this year, I remember thinking like, okay, last time I was just basically doing motivational speaking, which is great, but what do I want to do this year? And I realized like, wait a minute, I there were kids that came and they were adopted also from Ukraine into other families in Mississippi, and those adoptions did not go well. They either don't talk to their parents anymore, or they just have awful relationships with their parents, and some of them moved out and like with and just lived with other people literally, or went back to Ukraine, or some another guy got adopted. He's in the military now, but he got adopted in America by a different state, different family. And I'm just like, why is this happening? So I started contacting all of them, and I'm still friends with a few of them, and they just were not comfortable with sharing some of the traumas that they went through, I realized. And then also the parents weren't trauma informed care like aware or knew like what that meant or was seeking for that. And my parents were definitely educated in trauma informed care, and they were also just very vigilant of their reactions to things. They really didn't overreact on even though they wanted to, and they built that safety net with me and this like connection that was built on trust, because I really think in order to love, you have to trust. And if you love without trust, then it's unhealthy. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's truly is unhealthy. And when you're adopted, and I know you've never probably been through it, but like if when you're adopted, or when you're coming or you're becoming in love with anyone who's like your husband or something, it's whatever, even if it's natural, you're still not going to jump into it right away. But it's almost like with adoption, you have to, because like you're getting adopted. So at some point you have to live together and you have to call them your mom and dad. And it's like you're in this la la land and like this fake reality that like everything's okay and everything's perfect. But in reality, like you don't know them. They don't know you. Like you're just learning this connection. And then at about a year, you kind of snap out of it and you're like, wait, I don't know you. Like, I don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't think I truly love you yet, because like we haven't had this like trust is built over time. And I just know that like the other parents and other families, they were just kind of jumping into it. And then once they snapped out of that la la land, they didn't know what to do with it. And they kind of like some families made the children feel like they weren't really part of the family because they were weird, or they had weird things because they've been through so much trauma. They weren't really asking the questions behind of like the actions. Like if the kid was taking food and hiding food, they didn't ask the questions of why. They just labeled that as a bad child, even though in reality they had food insecurities their whole life, and they had to scramble for food, and yet now you're saying that they're weird, and then it's same for the kids. It's like the kids were in this like I don't trust anybody mind state, and it's like they didn't know how to connect, and it was just like wrong on both sides. And basically I wanted to see how can I change that, how can I speak into this. And one of the ways was I don't know if you know, but like in order to adopt anyone or even foster, you have to go through like a certain amount of hours through a home study. So it's not just a home study, but it's like you have to go through all these meetings and things. And I spoke at one of those meetings to parents that were thinking on adoption, and I gave them like, hey, this is from my perspective. This is what my parents learned, and this is what I've learned, and just kind of like how, how to coexist kind of thing. And they've never heard it. They said that they've never heard it from a parent, I mean, from a child's perspective. They've always either heard it from a parent perspective or a person that was elected to just speak to them. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And that was kind of, I guess now it's like a passion of mine, maybe after Miss Mississippi, but just to see like how far I can go with that. And then of course, like the books I was writing, the children's books about, well, actually I have one right here. It's about this little bear. It's called Theodore, the little bear with big feelings. And he gets adopted, and he doesn't know what to do with his feelings with that, because everything is new. And just like it was for me, like the floor, the bed, the parents, like everything's so different, and he's trying to fit in and he doesn't know what to do. And when kids feel like that, they start backing away and they're starting to show signs of mistrust, and like they might act out as well. And the parents in the emotion wheel introduce the I mean, in the book, introduce the emotion wheel and how you can use like all these different emotions to share your feelings. And first of all, to make them, make the child feel like, hey, every feeling is okay. Now we just got to learn how to handle it. But the biggest takeaway from the book is that the parents listened. The parents were there for the little bear. They were there for his growth, and they were patient with him. And I think that's really important. And not everyone that is adopted, obviously once you adopt, you kind of have to learn what to do, but like not everyone necessarily is called to it. And I think there's also that, like not everyone is called to adopt. And that was something that I saw with the parents of like that did adopt. They either only wanted that one child that had siblings. They didn't want the other siblings. They just wanted that one child. And that made some,
So like
because you
you're
have to
saying
like
that there were siblings to be adopted and they didn't want to adopt the whole family. They just wanted one child. So they broke
one
up.
child.
Oh, wow.
So they
Oh,
didn't break up the family. They adopted all three of them,
oh,
but
wow.
they only wanted the one girl. So it's like
Oh,
you're
wow.
adopting two other kids that you're not really a fan of. And now, I saw a lot of parents saying that we're like, oh, we did them a favor, or like, we're saving you. So you gotta listen and stuff like that. And that's not the right like mindset to go into it, because, they want to be loved, and they see you as this like the biggest thing, the best thing that happened to them. So for you to like feel like you're just doing them a favor is not gonna make for a good family. And of course it didn't work out. So that was something that I saw that was just so like heartbreaking, I guess. So that's why I released a website called limitlesspowertoconnect.com. And it kind of goes with the book. And it just talks about like the emotion wheel, the importance of listening, the importance of like how do you deal with someone who has been through a lot of trauma, and how do you raise a child in that and make them feel safe and comfortable? And then of course like um what is your side of it, like what can you do to connect with a child? And there's like little games you can play, and with the emotion wheel, and you can print out different printable games and just really connect with your kid. And I think it's so important that once you establish that, they're going to be able to tell you anything, because you got to say like 12 years old is I'm a preteen at that point. Like a year later, I was a teenager, and raising a teenager and getting a teenager to connect with you is hard in general. But then add trauma and a language barrier on top of that is going to be even harder. So I definitely don't think that it's for the faint of heart, but it is. If it's a calling on your life, it's going to go. First of all, you got to trust God that it's going to go well. And then second of all, you can't freak out over every little thing that goes wrong. And I know that like parents know that, but like actually going through it is a whole different thing. But my parents were just so, I think that's the difference. My parents were just so obedient, like just so obedient to the Lord. And I
Yeah.
think when you have that coupled with a calling, like obedience and calling coming together, it's beautiful. It truly is, because I wouldn't be sitting here today if that's not what happened.
No, no, it's so interesting to me just hearing you talk about all of the obstacles that you had all at one time. And then coming out of the la la land of, okay, this is the new normal, but hold up, wait a minute. It's like your senses caught up with you.
Yeah.
Um, I just find it so beautiful, though, that your family, your parents, y'all worked through that, whatever that meant. And I would imagine they probably got some sort of therapy or counseling or coaching or support somehow or another to merge those two worlds. And I think is so really spectacular just listening to you talk about that, because you think, oh my gosh, of course you didn't know how to identify your emotions. Of course you didn't know how to express, you didn't even know the language, number one, but to express it, how hard it is. I want to share with you because I work with a lot of women, and I'm releasing my book planner soon. I have a biblical emotional wheel inside of there and a whole system to identify your feelings, because I believe most people can't articulate
Mhm.
what they're feeling. I can't. I have to sit with a inner turmoil Like, I'm like, oh, and sometimes I don't have words around what am I feeling? I just feel frustrated. Like I have these huge blanket words, and I have to sit with myself quietly to go, okay, I'm feeling fear is what this is boiling down to. I'm feeling like I'm inadequate or I'm not good enough or like insecure, whatever the negative emotion is, then the toxic thought, whatever it is. I'm not able to label it right away. And I know a lot of people aren't. So I just love that you're building tools and resources with specificity around adoption and adoptive parents. But I just want to like throw out there, I kind of think we all, we're just a big fat mess, right? I think it's a
Yeah.
problem for everybody. I really do. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it with her. In fact, she and I have some fun announcements to make. She is actually going to be at as a speaker and do an interview with me and maybe some other fun stuff at the Worthy Woman Summit coming up in March 2026. If you haven't gotten your ticket to that, you're going to want to grab your ticket to that. It is March 19th and it's all day Thursday, Friday, the 20th and 21st. It's exciting. It's amazing. And the speakers that are going to be there, I haven't released the entire speaker list yet, just kind of like slowly dripping some names, but you're going to want to get your ticket right now. And you can go to worthywomansummit.com for that. Now, listen, join me next week for the next interview. We're going to do part 2 of Chosen, Crowned, and Changing the World. And it's going to be her mission. And so we're going to shift, and you're going to hear more about her entrepreneurial mind and the books that she's written and her goals and her dreams moving forward for the future and just how God's using her. It is so inspiring. All right, my friend, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week.